why wouldn't you want somebody to pick up your slack? For no matter how significant you are, it is only because of what you're a part of. Teamwork matters, and we'll accomplish so much more together than we ever will alone. A farmer noticed the highway department truck pulling over on the shoulder of the road. A man got out and dug a hole, and then he got back in his truck. And the other occupant got out, filled up the hole, and got back in the truck. Every 50 yards, this amazing process was repeated. "What are you doing?" the farmer asked. The driver replied, "We're on a highway beautification project, and the guy who plants the trees is homesick today." Some of you just need to let that sink in just a little bit. This journey we've been on the last few weeks has been very focused on relationships, the upward relationship with God and the outward relationship with people. It's important. It's vital. We shared that the Bible says to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, with everything that we have. And then we've shared that the second greatest commandment is to love others the way that we want to be loved. It's very simple. It's very straight to the point. But it's very, very, very important in our life. Connections matter. Today we're going to take that a step farther. And we're going to look at this whole concept as God's designed to make these connections upward and outward. They're not just meant to be created. They're meant to be put into action. And we're going to call that action today teamwork. A well-known football manager once commented in an interview, and it said, "It's easy to get good players. It's getting them to play together that's the hard part. It's easy to fill your teams with a bunch of good people, a bunch of very talented people, but it's hard to get them to come together. It's the hardest part." Teamwork is the willingness of a group of people to work together to achieve a common goal. I found a quote this week by Henry Ford that we're going to throw up on the screen really quick. And man, this one makes so much sense. Coming together is a beginning. Making the connection, is the beginning. Whether it's upward or outward, that is the beginning. It's important. It's vital. We've got to make it. That's the beginning. Keeping together is a process. Keeping that connection together is a process. It takes work. It takes effort. Especially, when we talk about larger groups of people. The reason being is we're all different. We have different personalities, we have different likes, we have different, dislikes, and sometimes when you put those things together, it causes, friction. It causes, some disagreements or some discrepancies, and so you have to work through those, especially even in a church. Not everybody thinks the same way, does things the same way, and so it is a process in keeping it together, but working together is success. Coming together, making the connection, intentionally working through the process, working through all the hang-ups, working through the mountains, working through getting through those walls, and then doing it in a way that fulfills the goals and the aims that are put before you. That's success. And that's always done as a team, much better as a team. Now, we can accomplish a lot of things by ourselves. There's no question. I'm not sitting here saying that we can't. But man, when you put people together to accomplish things, it is just so much more vital. Part of making outward connections with others is to create the relationship. But once again, it's not meant to stop with the creation. Those relationships are meant to be put into action. Working together, serving together, living life together. Ultimately, it makes a difference in not only our own lives, but the lives around us. It's called teamwork. It matters. It matters. Teamwork means that we share a common idea, that we embrace a common goal. Regardless of our differences, we strive shoulder to shoulder, confident in one another's faith and our trust and our commitment to see it through. And in the end, it can be summed up in 5 short words. We believe in each other. We believe in each other. We may not always agree with each other, but we believe in what we're doing. And we believe in what we're doing together. And we believe so much that we're willing to work through those issues and work through that process to make it happen. A couple more things said about teamwork. One by Tom Wilson says, many of us are more capable than some of us, but none of us is as capable as all of us. Teamwork is the fuel that allows common people to produce uncommon results. True teamwork is a two-way street, reaching out to help colleagues and also being open and receptive to help when it's often. And I think this is one hang-up that we get to a lot is because, the pride kind of sinks in and we're okay. I'll step up and do my part. But then when we get to struggling or we get to failing or we get tired or we get weak or whatever it might be, pride steps in and we're too prideful to say I need help. We're too prideful to accept the help. And in essence, all that does is make us weaker as an individual and weaker as a team. It really does. I mean, honestly, when you've got people on a team that are willing to hold people up, to help people stand when they get tired, it's a big, big deal. Creating outward relationships matter. Putting those relationships to work matters more. And you are important to that equation. Every single one of you. You're vital to it. Can't be done without you. Think of it this way. A quarterback is important on a football team. We look at things, you always think about the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Bradys and, those big name quarterbacks. The Aaron Rodgers. I threw that in there for you, Lee. Just make sure I take care of the Packers there for you, buddy. But really, you think about that. That's the name. They're the ones that make it all roll. They're the ones that make the plays. They're the ones that do all this. Seriously. But I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care what his name is. If he don't have the other 10 people on the same side of the ball as he is, and the other 11 on the other side of the football on defense, and the teams on the players on special teams over here, and the extra players on the sidelines that come in specialty situations or to give people rest or whatever it may be, no way Peyton Manning ends up in the Super Bowl on that field by himself all the time. No way. It can't happen. What happens on that line if you call a running play to the right side and the right guard and the right tackle miss their block? Everyone else may do their part, but if they miss their block, there's no game. Everyone's place is important. Everyone's part of a team is important, especially God's team. Baseball, basketball, even golf. See, golfers are a bunch of sissies. I've played some of them courses that them boys play. I don't care. Up, down, stop. It's tough. You put that bag, that big old heavy bag with all them clubs and all that junk that goes in that bag, and you take it off the caddy's shoulder and you put it on the golfer's shoulder, and I can promise you after 4 days, they may play good for a day or two, maybe even 3, but come day 4, they're worn out. There's a reason. Teamwork matters. And it's getting them to do their individual parts well. Now, sometimes we struggle with this. Staying on the sports team, I can tell you one place that it's really struggles. And this is probably more prevalent in this sport than any other sport, but NBA basketball. So many times you get teams that are made up of nothing but superstars. They pay all this money for 3 and 4. These people would all be superstars on their own team. But then you put them all together, and on the outside you're thinking, oh my goodness. All of them together, man, they should just beat everyone. But what typically, 9 times out of 10, ends up happening? They never play to their potential. They never reach their potential. Why? Because they're all stuck on the superstar. They're all stuck on me and what I'm getting to do and what I'm not getting to do. And that becomes more prevalent than the team working together to make it happen. And I'd love a team full of superstars. I love that. But those superstars got to realize that even a superstar has a limitation. Even a superstar, they have specific things that they're good at and some things that they're not. Why wouldn't you want somebody to pick up your slack and to fill that void? For years and years, especially in the music, I love surrounding myself with people that are better than me. Why? Because it makes me better. You should never be jealous of someone that is around you that does something better than you are, because it's an opportunity for you to join together and to team up and to grow and get better yourself. Teamwork matters. Throughout the Bible, we read stories about people working together as a team to achieve a mission. Noah and his family building an ark. Nehemiah built a wall with a team. Took the whole team. Moses had team leaders around him, Paul and Silas, Barnabas and Mark. Gideon and his 300. It was teamwork, and it was vital to accomplish the things that God had set out before them. I want to share some scripture with you early on in this teaching that I shared a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's important that we go back to it just to kind of, magnify this whole point. It's in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and verse 8 says this: "There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling?" he asked. "And why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business." We can look at this part of this story and you can see, the guy's probably got a good job. He makes pretty good money. He's pretty wealthy. He got that opportunity. But the one thing that he does not have is a connection. Now, we can hypothetically guess and look at this that he probably doesn't have an upward connection with God, but you can definitely say by what's said in the Scripture that he doesn't have an outward connection with anyone. The Bible says he's all alone. And even he recognizes it and goes as far to say, man, this is miserable. It is absolutely miserable. Goes on to say, two are better than one, because they have good return for their labor. If either one of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they'll keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves, and a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Teamwork matters. Working at this thing called life together, it matters. It makes a difference. And you matter to that difference. I want to jump forward into the New Testament. I'm going to read several scriptures to you this morning out of 1 Corinthians chapter 12. The rest of the scriptures that I read today will be out of the Message Bible. And man, this really, if you'll really read and look at the words of this just speaks. This is plain. This is the real deal when we start talking about teamwork. Starting in verse 14, it says, I want you to think about all this makes you more significant, not less. A body isn't just a single part blown up into something huge. It's all the different but similar parts arranged and functioning together. If foot says, I'm not elegant like the hand embellished with rings, I guess I don't belong to this body. Would that make it so? If ear said, I'm not beautiful like eye, limpid and expressive, I don't deserve a place on the head. Would you want to remove it from the body? If the body was all eye, how could it hear? If all ear, how could it smell? As it is, we see that God has carefully placed each part of the body right where He wanted it. But I also want you to think about how this keeps your significance from getting blown up into self-importance. For no matter how significant you are, it is only because of what you're a part of. You keep that up there and just read that again. No matter how significant you are, no matter how good at something you are, it's only because of what you're a part of. Sin, all that does is just make you better. All that does is just make you, be able to accomplish things in a better way. Christina could come up here and play the keyboard all day long, and it would be beautiful, and it would be gorgeous, and she would just do a phenomenal job. But you start adding pieces around, it just makes it better. Same thing with Stephen. Stephen could come up here and beat these drums. Wade could come up here and beat these drums, and man, they could just go animal. Remember the Muppets? Really. And it would be good. But you put people around them doing their job, it just makes it better. Let's keep going. An enormous eye or a gigantic hand wouldn't be a body, but a monster. Wow. What we have is one body with many parts, each its proper size and in its proper place. No part is important on its own. Can you imagine eye telling hand, get lost, I don't need you? Or head telling foot, you're fired. Your job has been phased out. The way God designed our bodies is a model for understanding our lives together as a church. We skip to verse 25. Every part is dependent on every other part. The parts we mention and the parts we don't. The parts we see and the parts we don't. If one part hurts, every other part is involved in the hurt and in the healing. If one part flourishes, every other part enters into the exuberance. You are Christ's body. That's who you are. That's who you are. You must never forget this. Only as you accept your part of that body does your part mean anything. Only as you accept your part. Only as you get up and do what God asks you to do does your part mean anything. Now some of you say, well, wait a minute, Pastor Ron. I've done some pretty cool stuff, and I've worked here and I've volunteered here. That's great. I'm not trying to belittle what you've done as an individual. I'm telling you, in the bigger scheme, in the bigger picture of things, it is insignificant to what can be accomplished together. It was God's design. If it wasn't, why would He have created the opportunity for connections to begin with? I mean, think about it. It's that important. You matter in this whole thing. Teamwork matters, and we'll accomplish so much more together than we ever will alone. Now, you may be sitting here this morning and you may be thinking, with Pastor Ron, I just don't feel significant. You know, there's nothing that I can do that would put me up on this stage or play any one of these instruments, or I'm not really good with a soundboard or techie stuff. I'm no good. I can't cook. Kids drive me nuts. It's hard for me to just talk to people. And maybe, whatever, but you're sitting there today and you say, I just don't see the significance in my life. I just don't see how in the world I could fit in this thing called a team. This past week, I got to spend in a place that is very near and dear to my heart, one that I don't say this cliche-like, it's very honest when I say that it is truly becoming a home away from home. It's a comfortable place to me. It's a safe place. It's a country and a people that I've really fallen in love with. Over 5 journeys that I've made to Nicaragua, it's just each one holds its own special place and its own special time and own special connections. Connections that I've made from years ago. Pablo, I made that connection with Pablo on my very, very, very first trip. And then this trip also, new connections that were made with new people and new faces. But we made this trip and we made this journey with a specific task in mind. Our job is to go down there and basically remodel this building. You can throw the picture of that building up really quick. And this is the outside of their church, and their ministry is called Life Church International. That's the name of their ministry and their church. And so we knew that going down there that this was going to be our mission. Now we've been given a few little kind of homemade drawn plans from Pablo's measurements and all these different things. And so, we kind of had an idea. A couple weeks before we flew out, we went over, Skyped with him. He kind of went through the building with his phone and showed us stuff. And it was dark, so you couldn't really see anything. It was just really, it was tough. But anyways, we kind of had this idea in our mind of, what this group of 19 different men were going to go down there and supposed to accomplish in a very short amount of time. A very short amount of time. We were supposed to be done by 5 o'clock on Sunday night so they could have their very first service in the new part of this building. Now, some significance about this building. It is iconic and historical in Matagalpa. It used to be a theater, one of the very few in town that the town has ever seen. Everyone that has ever been in Matagalpa for very long knows what this building is, and they know the significance of it and the historical nature of it. So to me, it's just awesome to think anyways that they got this building. I mean, they planted a church in this building. This is amazing for me to think about. This is how big God is. So we get there about 4:30 on Thursday afternoon. Flights go well. Trip goes well. It's about a 2.5-hour drive from Managua to Matagalpa. And so they pull us in and we get out and we unload all of our tools in this open little area. And then we walk in and we see this. Now, if you look at this, it's kind of cool looking. There's some things, though. I mean, it's just a few things. The floor is as uneven as you can get. Seriously. The wood, you can go to a lumber yard today and say, I need 125 2x4s, and you can drive away 10 minutes later with 125 2x4s. In Matagalpa, if you need 125 2x4s, they say, I need 2 weeks. They go cut the trees, they plane them out, then they deliver them. Wet, heavy, thick. Some of them are a little bit different on the sizing. It's a challenge. No lights in this whatsoever. This is just sunlight. Okay? And the expression on our faces, I just a short little pic, that was the expression on our face when we all walked in. Swear. It was like, you're kidding me. Kidding me, right? Because we had a stage to build that is bigger than this stage. It was hollow. There was just a cement retaining wall that was just like the floor. You know, it was open to the bottom here. Back here, there was this little bitty ledge about yay wide, just a little over 2 inches for joists to sit on top of. Had the pony wall, the whole thing, and every single cut on the pony wall just about was a different measurement. We had a sound booth to build. We had electric wire to run. And by the way, electricity there, they have electricity, but the wire that they got us is basically oversized speaker wire. That's what it is. And so, but we had to run this through all these rafters and all these places. We had stairs to fix. We had a children's room upstairs to remodel. Before we could fix the room and do that, the floor was falling down, so we had to prop that up and put headers underneath the floor just to make it stable. I mean, all of this stuff to do. So we decided to do it. Nothing could have prepared us, really. We had to set up sound and hang a projector and a screen. And then Pablo decided he wanted a preaching platform after we'd got all this done. There's significance to it, which I'll share in a minute. All this before church on Sunday night. So we got to work. Now, the cool thing about this whole process is in the middle of 19 of us, we had carpenters, really good ones. We had electricians, really good ones. We had people that did drywall, really good ones. People that had specific tasks and were really good at those tasks, but also in those tasks, or in those people, we had people that didn't have a clue about any of it. But they could read a tape measure. They could cut a board. They could carry wood. They could go get screws. They could run to the lumber yard. They could do whatever. Even people that just did nothing more than play with kids at times. So we started work. 10 minutes after we walked in that building, we started to work. 10 minutes. It was a mission. God had sent us down there with a plan and a goal, and we knew, honestly, inside of us, no one was going to tell us that we weren't going to accomplish. So we got to work. Everyone had something that they were there to do. And the only way to get it done was if we all decided that whatever we could do, we were going to do it to the best of our ability. The hand had to do what the hand could do, and the foot had to do what the foot could do, and everyone mattered. Things began to come together, and they began to take shape, and then it was kind of time for, and I'd put some screws in and did a few things. I have very limited knowledge, but I was scary enough, and since everything was unlevel anyways, I fit in pretty good. And so, but it got to the time where we got to the place to where it was time to, start working on the sound system and the AV. Well, some of the things that we bought here in the States and we'd taken down, but some of the things, that we decided just to take a chance, roll the dice, and get down there because of money and because of hauling and all these different things. So Pastor Buddy came to me on Friday afternoon and said, "Hey, Pablo wants you to go to Managua in the morning and get speakers." And I said, "Okay, no problem." So a little bit later, Pablo says, "You go to Managua with me tomorrow?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "You have a gun?" Promise. I said, "What?" He said, "You have a gun." He said, "We're going to the market." He said, "The Oriental market. Gringos don't go to the Oriental market." I said, "Good. Let's do it." The whole time he was watching me and just looking for and I kept thinking he was joking. I no joke. It's dangerous. He said, "We leave early, get out early." I said, "Good." So we have Pablo, and we have a guy that he comes on that speaks not one word of English, but he's short, but he's stocky, kind of like short Adam. So I'm feeling better. And then it's me and Josh Hoppy. Oh, great. It was kind of funny because I was in shorts and a T-shirt, and of course they were two nationals, and we were driving through there, and he said, "Pastor Ron," he said, "one good thing about it." I said, "What's that, Pablo?" He said, "Well," he said, "the way I see it," he said, "we're going into this market." He said, "They're going to know one of us has money, He said, they know that, and I can't remember the guy's name. He said, they know that me and him, we would never carry it. He said, you're dressed in shorts and a T-shirt. They don't think you're important enough. He said, it's all on Hoppy. So I was like, yes. So anyways, we're making this journey, and I'm promised this is true. And I'd been to a similar market before, but nothing like this. And so some of you have seen this. I posted it, and Josh posted it that day. But we pull up to the stoplight. We're a block away from the market. He says, it's right down there. And then all of a sudden, this guy jumps out in the street and starts juggling machetes. Real machetes. He clanged them for us just to show us that they were real. And so, this is not something that you see, in Ava, Missouri every day when the stoplight turns red. And so, inside you're thinking this is going to be okay. But on the outside, it's just like, man, I don't know. We're going to a place, he said, white people don't go. And I'm looking at a guy juggling machetes 10 foot in front of my car. And at any time, he could just sling one of them right at me.
Nobody juggles machetes in Ava.
We did end up paying him because he looked good. But anyways, after this process, and we go the block, and Pablo says, okay, we're going in one way, and we're coming out the other way. I said, why? For safety. So I said, okay. So we go in, and we're walking through the market, and for real, we're the only two white people that I can see forever. And we get to the music store, and we go in, we find the deal. And by the way, we're standing there with these speakers, and I said, Pablo, why are we here? Could you not buy speakers in Matagapa? He said, oh, yeah. He said, but these, half price. He said, the risk was worth it. I said, okay, that's good enough for me. So we loaded all this stuff up, and we walked right down the middle of this place, and we loaded them up. We cinched them down. We kept the other guy in the back of the pickup and say somebody wanted to rob us, and we went out a different way, and we made it, and it was all great. It was fun, wonderful experience. And we get these things back, and we take them inside, and they finally got the stage done, and we start unpacking some things, and we start setting some things up, and things start becoming real. We kind of get this idea that we might do this. So we stretch a few things out that night. We work as long as we possibly can. And the next morning, we get up. By the way, my little bug friend decided to visit me that morning. I didn't like him very well either. But we go in, we go to work, we work through it, and get all this stuff ready to go, all the sound system, everything's run, and we're ready to plug stuff in. And this is what we plug into. That was ours. Now, I don't say that to say we're all this and we're all that. I just say that to say we're a part of a team, and we had it. We had it. I contacted the 7 guys on our leadership team and said, hey, I've got an opportunity we've got an opportunity, we have it. Just the week prior to that, Brian Dean had said, man, what are we doing with that soundboard in there? Is there anyone we can give that to? We kind of discussed it a little bit and kind of come to the realization if the right thing came up. Just a few days later, I got the opportunity to call them back or text them back and say, here's the opportunity. And it worked. Another cool thing about it is I felt God speak to me a specific amount of money that our church was supposed to invest in this trip. It took every single penny of that investment to get that board to Nicaragua. We got up to the very first airline in Tulsa, and they said, it's going to cost this much to ship it. We were like, oh. But to the dollar, it's what it took to get it down there. It's being part of a team. Not based on church, not based on denomination, not based on nationality, not based on anything else, not even based on the towns that we live in. It's about being a part of a team and being obedient to what God asked us to do. And it worked. What our church did, pretty small. In significance to what I know what was done. But it was still a part. And it was a part that had to be done. People that have went before us, that's, like I said, this is my 5th trip. Vernon's been, Taylor's been, Stephen's been, Wade and Kaylin's been, and Adam has been, and Tammy and Jada have been. These are connections that our church has made. Why? I really, I can't see a bigger picture, but I know that now it's important. The outward connections, they matter. I don't care where the connection is made, whether it's Ava, Missouri, and Nicaragua, or the Philippines. I told the story this morning. My aunt and my uncle served as missionaries in the Philippines for years, and it was years ago. And they laid foundations for things that are happening right now. They didn't see all the stuff then that's happening now. They had no clue that just this past year that GBBC in the Philippines would send their very first missions team to India. They didn't see that. But they were a part of it because it's what they had been a part of that investment. They had given of their lives and simply said, okay, God said do it, and they said yes. God said do it, and they said yes. It matters. One of the greatest teams ever assembled was by Jesus. And He assembled His disciples with them, and He reached outward and He created those relationships. He was with them for basically 3 years. Let them see and be a part of all this really cool stuff. But there came a time when this relationship would be put to the test. Because, see, Jesus had to leave. It was His time to go. And He looked at him and He gave him very specific instructions. And He said, I want you to go, and I want you to tell, and I want you to make disciples, and I want you to baptize people. Can you imagine the feeling in these men? I mean, honestly. It was crazy enough as it is. And He gives them these specific instructions, and He says, go. Put the relationships to work. All that you've created here, all that we've created together, go put it to work. That's what He said. Don't waste it. Outward connections matter, but they matter more when they're actively working together to accomplish what Jesus sets before you. And you can do it. Each one does your part. Just see what you can accomplish. We started work on this church at about 4:15, 4:30 on that Thursday night. And that afternoon, this is what we had on Sunday. 3 o'clock, we stepped on this stage for practice, and I was blessed to be able to be a part of the worship experience that night, as was a couple of others from our team. Doesn't that look great? I mean, it really is awesome. Even Pablo's preaching platform. He thinks that's cool, by the way. And there's Pablo for the very first time inside of this room in this building on the Sunday night at 5 o'clock, facing just a huge crowd of people. The worship experience and the prayer experience at the end was just phenomenal. Now, was that because of us? No. It was because of God and a bunch of 19 rednecks from Douglas County's willingness to jump on a plane and fly to Managua to go to Matagalpa in the mountains to just do something silly. That you would think, oh man, that's a great story. We went down there and got this church up and going. But we learned a lesson, as we always do, no matter where you are and what you do, that even though you may think you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, God always has something else in mind. There was one more event that happened that night. I have a picture of some of it. That morning, on Sunday morning, there was a man that was a very well-respected and very well-known man from this community and up in the mountains. He worked with honest parents on one of their farms, on their coffee farm, and kind of ran the thing. But this was a man that was just, everyone knew this guy. Well, he died that Sunday morning. Well, funerals in Nicaragua are a little bit different than here. And I mean, as soon as they die, they begin the process of mourning and services. And so that night, there's no embalming, there's no anything. They just begin to go through the process. And well, they needed a place to begin that. There was no place in Matagalpa that would have held the people that they were expecting, and that did show up to this very special event. The only place in the city was a Catholic church, which would have cost them $600, which they didn't have. Half the space. They wouldn't have been able to preach or share Jesus and do a lot of the things that meant to be doing. So it just so happened that we were done, and we're able to say, Pablo said, yeah, we can do it here. Family was already connected in the church, and the preaching platform that Pablo asked for made a beautiful setting for this man's body. They put lights around it like you would see here. They had flowers like you would see here. The screen on the background, the Brooklyn and Josh and some of them just frantically worked to get pictures off of Facebook, and they made a video of this man's pictures just scrolling. No one had ever seen anything like it. To celebrate this man. And wall to wall, front to back, packed for hours. In fact, it was all night long. If you stepped out, there's a door right here on the side of this picture that leads out into the street, and you step out and you could see people lined up, they said, as far as you could see, just to get in. There's always more to it than what we see. There's always more to it than what we think. Just to say yes. I don't say this whatever, arrogantly or in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but had we not decided to go down, had we not decided to take the things and purchase the things and do the things that we did, and that's with all glory to God, this would not have happened. And you say, well, Pastor Ron, what's the big deal? It's just a funeral. Hundreds and hundreds of people that don't know Jesus step foot in an iconic historical building that is a respected place in this city. And they watched Pablo, and they watched Anna, and they watched these people of this church, of Life Church International, love on these families. It was amazing. I believe God used it, and I believe that tonight at 5 o'clock, there will be an unbelievable amount of people that were at this service that will funnel right back into Life Church International and will hear and receive the name of Christ for the very first time tonight. That's what I believe. Now, for you, it may not be a trip to Nicaragua. It may be just down your street. It may be to Walmart. It may just be doing something as simple, as reaching out to someone and just making that connection verbally. Do it. Say yes, it matters. If it is to Nicaragua, though, by the way, the dates are booked. We fly out December the 27th of 2016. And we will spend an entire week with Pablo and Ana. And I'm jacked. I will give you specifics in the next couple of 3 weeks. I will give you cost, hopefully some idea of what we'll be doing. Not everyone will get to go. I'll just tell you, some of you is like, that's not for me. Doesn't matter. You can still be a part. How can I be a part? You can pray. You can invest in it. Some of you, you're going to be shaken to the core inside. You've never done anything like this in your entire life. And God is speaking to you at this very moment. Oh my gosh, He's telling me to go. Then please say yes. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about where it's going to come from, how you're going to get it. I promise you it always shows up, even in an envelope on your front porch when you're least expecting it. It happens. You matter in the whole scheme of this whole thing. I want to share one more scripture with you before we leave. It's Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. Once again, it's in the Message Bible, and this is so cool. Now think about this, all that we've talked about. And this is what Paul says. He says, in light of all this, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get out there and walk. Better yet, run. Basically what he's saying, get off your duff and go do what you've been asked to do. Don't do it half-heartedly. Do it passionately. Whatever that is. Whatever it is. On the road that God called you to travel. I don't want any of you sitting around on your hands. I don't want anyone strolling off down some path that goes nowhere. And mark that you do this with humility and discipline. You recognize that what you are doing is a God thing. It is not a you thing. The only superstar in this whole thing is Jesus Christ Himself. That's it. And recognizing that and believing that and living that, that's what matters. You don't do it not in fits and starts, but steadily, pouring yourselves out for each other in acts of love, alert at noticing differences and quick at mending fences. Now get this. You were all called to travel on the same road in the same direction, so stay together, both inwardly and outwardly. That is cool. We're all doing the same thing for the same reason. We're not going to be perfect doing it. We're going to make mistakes along the way. But connections matter. This connection, these connections, they matter. Putting those relationships into action matters more. It begins with being connected with Jesus, loving Him with everything that we are, and then loving others in the same way, the way that we would want to be loved. And you have a part in this. And your part matters. It matters. You matter.